Hello, everybody. Welcome to our RIDE breakout. It's good to see you all here. I'm going to be emceeing / facilitating, but this is really a conversation we hope all of you can participate in. Thank you all for showing up. I know that was a very short break between the plenary and now, so I hope you all got some fuel in you or took care of yourself, whatever that needed to be. I know that some people took shots around here. All right, we're just gonna get this thing started because and people will roll in, and you have the option also of bouncing around to other topics. I know that there might be other ones that you're interested in. We are recording all of these so that we can offer you to view this again. Anyway, I'm hoping for a rich conversation. Like I said earlier in the plenary, I want people to be kind to each other in chat and be open-minded. I think you're all here because you really want to learn. I'm going to read the description of this just as a reminder for everyone about what brings us together for this workshop. This is about encouraging diversity and inclusivity in your camp. Burning Man has made a pledge to anti-racism and ensuring a more diverse and radically inclusive Black Rock City. We hope you're here today to join this conversation on practical steps your camp can take to increase diversity and make your camp more welcoming and inclusive of people of all backgrounds. We have a panel here today. I think we're going to spotlight everyone. They're not already spotlighted. And that panel is just going to share their knowledge and their experience, and I will continue to open it up so that people can share as well. And I think that we will allow people to unmute themselves, but please let me call on you before you do that, so you kind of just respect the queue that is forming. I will also say, if you have something to say, if you're familiar with Zoom, there's a raise hand function. I'm going to do it right now. Please use that. That way I can know. I'm going to go to my panel first, but as a member of this room, if you're interested in also saying something or asking a question, show your hand. I will find that, and then I will call on you eventually, hopefully. All right, without further ado, I am going to introduce or allow the panel to introduce themselves. I've asked them to state their names, what camp they're a part of in Black Rock City, and what camp in Black Rock City outside of your own have you felt most welcome in, or has made it really clear like you're welcome there even though you're not part of their camp. So I'm going to kick it off. I will ask Queen Badass to start us off. Oh, and you are muted. Panelists, feel free to unmute at this time unless there's some loud thing going on in the background. That way you can just jump in.
Yeah, and I told myself I wasn't going to do that. No worries, of course. So thank you, Level. It's Queen Badass. 2022 was my first Fern, and I was camp lead for the Camp Mobetta. We were a POC, predominantly Black camp that camped in the multicultural POC neighborhood, which was a great experience. We were about 24 campers, and we were 2/3 virgins, and we had a really successful year, so we're excited about that. The camp that was really welcoming, there were quite a few, but I would say that the camp that was most welcoming was called Beats and Deets. And Beats and Deets was a camp that was right next to us. And not only did they come up and save the day when we were putting up our shade structure for the first time that was trying to sail away, but they did everything from helping us fix bikes and sharing tarps and just joining in for great conversation. And their interactivity was really, really cool. So love them. Shout out to that camp. Thank you so much for taking us in and treating us like being very inclusive and treating us very openly and welcomingly.
And Beats and Deets wasn't a part of the multicultural neighborhood, right?
No, yeah. Beats and Deets was not a part of the neighborhood. They were a camp from Australia, I think, and they were next door, but they were, again, so warm, so welcoming, so friendly, and it was really felt great to just have them next to us. as first timers during the week when anything came up we were kind of nervous about. They were just great for information and support, and sometimes just a laugh, a bite, or a drink. It was really, I really valued them.
Great. And for folks that don't know, I don't know, I'm curious, had anyone heard of the multicultural POC neighborhood or visited or came across it? I see some hands, some nods, and some shakes. Okay, yeah. Around 6 o'clock and 6:30 and C and D, we clustered camps that decided that they wanted to be part of this neighborhood. It was a community homegrown effort. It wasn't placement saying this needs to happen. Again, we're here to support communities coming together. And so there's another camp, and we have another panelist who was part of that neighborhood. Big Daddy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Big Daddy. I've been to the Big Burn 5 times. I've been a burner since the early 90s. I lead IPOW, which is an Indigenous camp. We started this camp to bring more Indigenous presence and to have a safe place for Indigenous people, for the Paiutes to come and enjoy and relax. We had a very successful camp. We gifted over 1,000 people traditional Indigenous food. Camps that are most welcoming, I have a couple. Vines Without Borders was the camp I was originally with many years ago. They're a great bunch of people, took me and my partner in, and just awesome people. And then the camps in the multicultural neighbor, Mo Better, was right across the street. It was just an awesome group of groundswell that we all came together, and we're still working together to improve and increase the amount of representation in the neighborhood and BIPOC people.
Great. And I know Queen Badass mentioned, Beats and Deets was just so welcoming, helped out with, dust storms and building and things like that. What qualities would you say Big Daddy were welcoming about Vines Without Borders and the other camps you named?
So our first year at the Big Burn, we camped solo, looking for camping. They welcomed us in. Everybody was so friendly, and after that first burn, developed amazing relationships. And some of the campers in the camp, actually, I travel with cross country to Burning Man. One's from the Philippines and one's from India. So it was just, it felt like family.
Great, thank you, Big Daddy. It felt like family. What a strong statement. I'm going to move on to introduce David, who is from Costume Cult and other camps. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, my name is David. I went to Burning Man for the first time in 2015 with a camp from San Francisco called Rainbow Oasis, like a queer camp from San Francisco. Last year I went with Costume Cult, and I've also been at the Renegades Open Camping, and just usually, and also love going to regionals and so jumping around different camps. And one of my most welcoming experiences last year, I think, was Macropolis. There was this very small bar in like the tree and age area near the vegetable camp, and it was just so friendly. Like, they were open 24/7, and they always had ice or water or like good advice or like support, and they're super sweet. I really like those spaces where they allow you to just be and be, sometimes there's people that are angry there, crying, happy. Like the space allows for everybody to like just be what they need to be doing at that point, and they were very accommodating of everybody all the time.
Thank you. Thanks for describing what that looked like and felt like. And our last panelist is Drama Queen from Mobility Camp. Drama Queen.
Hi, I'm Drama Queen. I've been with Mobility Camp. This will be my 4th burn. It came in 2018, and it just became home from the get-go. And I'm just delighted to be part of that group. I haven't been in a camp that wasn't open and friendly, but I do happen to love the abortion clinic. And that's because they're so irreverent. And I can't tell you how odd and strange it is to be offered a frozen vodka fetus. And the humor in that, allowed me to get into a wonderful, I'll call it a discussion with their camp lead, whose name I can't think of, but I found it very opening in a certain way. And the camp next door to us, Rosie's chariots, because they're available for anybody who has a disability issue. They can use those chariots. So those are my two faves.
Thanks for the introduction and describing, all sorts of things that feel inclusive. Queen Badass, I see your hand.
Since you mentioned two, Drama Queen, I wanted to add one more camp that really went exempt besides all the camps in the neighborhood, which were great. And it was Hair of the Dog, R.I.D.E. They were also really wonderful. So on first night, we were, as I mentioned, our camp was about 2/3 virgins. And, we didn't really know where to wander off to on that first night. And we went there, and one of the virgins even from the camp, went to the bar and asked for a particular cocktail like they were at a regular bar. And I kind of paused thinking that was going to go, it could go anyway with Starkey Burners, but they were also very wonderful and answered that well. I really, really enjoyed R.I.D.E, and they were very, very welcoming and inclusive. And then we quickly helped that burner out, that virgin burner out, with letting them know what to expect and how things went around there.
That's fantastic. Yeah. The reason I asked this question as a kickoff is because I think a lot of people feel like when we start talking about diversity and inclusion, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to make a mistake. What is this? What did I do? Give me the 10-point guide to being inclusive. And you all described, like just human qualities of being welcome, being friendly, seeing someone that needs some help, helping them out. I'm curious, if any of you have thoughts about that discomfort that people feel about this work, and what advice you would give about, how do you handle that discomfort? And if I don't know enough about who you are, you look a little different than me, and I feel uncomfortable, how do you make them feel included? How do you want to, what advice would you give? David.
This is like a very common question that comes up at the end, and it's always better to also think about it and not feel be in a space that also lets you go through those things. I think we all had to learn things at one point or another, right? And there's because inclusion looks so different for in when it comes to financial inclusion or racial inclusion, women, there's a lot of angles that can go into it, and none of us know all of them. I know my community very well, and I think so for that, I guess, in actionable advice, the most important thing is to remember that it's a practice, that we can only get better at it, that we all will make mistakes in the process, we can learn from our mistakes, and that the best thing to do is to find the people that you want to collaborate with, or the communities that you want to see more of, and then finding what initiatives do they currently have, and supporting them and learning from them, and trying to stay with kind of the things that better of, so that you can also so that when also, if you make mistakes, people know that are genuine mistakes because they see you committed to something else too.
Yeah, that trust is helpful, having a trusted partner or ally to help you navigate that, and being comfortable with making mistakes. I think that's a thing we all need to learn. We learn from mistakes. When you first started riding a bicycle, probably fell off. That's a mistake. It's okay. You figured it out better the next time. Drama Queen.
I agree with everything David said. It's look, listen, and lead with kindness. But looking and listening has a different connotation if you're dealing with pronouns and you don't understand it. For a lot of older people, why do I have to change? Why do I have to say a different pronoun than I was trained in grammar? And I agree with David. You just respect and honor that person and understand that that's what makes them feel comfortable. So to be respectful of people is to be open, listen, ask questions. And I would say the other important thing, when things come up in camp, If things are said that shouldn't be said, racist, homophobic things, what we did in our camp was we started talking. And that talk led to a kitchen talk in our kitchen. And those people in that kitchen said, we want more. And that led to our ongoing workshops in neurodiversity, allyship, and various other inclusive and diverse topics. And it's been quite a learning experience. And it's not perfect. We are still learning. I still don't quite know everything I'm supposed to do in this position as the RIDE lead for my camp. But we started off, for example, you want to include more disabled people in your camp? Look around. Oh, someone on crutches would not be able to get into our kitchen. Fine, make it bigger. We have an art car. Fluffy was the famous one. Fluffy the art car got a hold of our camp, not me, but people in camp. And they brought the car around, and Katie, the librarian, and Rat Lady said, disabled can't get on your art car. They made the corrections. Wheelchairs and people who were disabled were able to get on that art car. Look for the problem and don't look at it as a mistake. Look at it as an opportunity to learn and lead with kindness.
I love that. Lead with kindness, look at it as an opportunity to learn. Big Daddy.
I'm in it too with education. So the history or the reason why IPOW was started is me and my partner were out in Playa and somebody was wearing regalia. First, we know feathers shouldn't be there, but somebody was wearing regalia. And my first hint is I was really angry. And it was, for our community, you have to earn that. And it was, but I went up and started talking to them. And I found out that they were from Europe and didn't know very much about Indigenous people. So had a long conversation with them, and they completely understood, packed it all away, put it away. Like I said, they shouldn't have the feathers out there, but they completely understood. And then this is getting to is after IPOW last year, a couple people put me in contact with the sheep in the Netherlands, and they were doing their regional burn, and they wanted to do dream catchers. And I'm like, I could be very staunch and going, no, you can't do it. But I'm like, let's educate over there and show that this is what a dream catcher is for, where it should be placed, why it's made, and why you don't buy like stuff that's made at Walmart or big box stores. So yeah, I'm very much on education and talking, because everybody makes mistakes. Everybody doesn't know sometimes.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. This is making me think about people, I think there's also another narrative about, people of color, people with disabilities, Indigenous people needing to do all the work to do the educating. What if you don't have someone in your community that is of any of those backgrounds, that doesn't, that's not transgender? Where would you recommend? How would you start? I think that's something I hear a lot from from theme camp organizers saying, like, we care about inclusion, we want to do this, but we don't know where to start, and we don't have anyone in our community that's really smart at this or has done this. So I'd love to hear about your own journeys or your own perspectives on that. Drama Queen.
I would say start with pronouns, because that's the simplest thing. Not every camp is going to have a disabled person. Not every camp is going to have gender diversity. We have all of that, but that will lead to uncomfortable conversations. And those are the good ones to have, because you're going to learn so much about why people feel that way. And if you can understand that, and okay, so segue into that, just keep asking questions. Start with pronouns, keep asking questions. Let's say somebody says something they think is funny, but it's locker room humor and it is totally inappropriate. It's racist, it's homophobic. You can say, it's not easy. I have a hard time speaking up sometimes. You can say things like, that's not funny. You might say, well, why do you find that funny? In other words, talk, ask questions, be curious. You can also say, that simply isn't true. come up with some simple things that you could say. And here's the most important one, because if you ask this, if somebody says something that you think is racist or homophobic, ask them, what do you mean by that? Because maybe they're saying something out of context that is worthy of a deeper discussion. And I don't know about you guys, but I oftentimes put my foot in my mouth. I meant to say something else, but it comes out in the awkward way. Just keep questioning. That's all. And there's no expert. There is no expert. The person in your camp who says, okay, I'll be the ride lead. There's your person.
Keep open, keep learning. Queen Badass, I think you look like you're going to say something.
I thank you. I definitely think that it is the responsibility of all of us, right? Each individual to really do the work. And because there are so many resources out there, I think of a lot of the things that are going on at Hive, right? So when I was doing a lot of research to join Burning Man and thinking about doing a camp last year, I went on Hive as one of those resources to find information. And there was a plethora of information, and resources there, which then sent me to other places. So I think it's, if folks really want to do that, and if they're really interested, absolutely do the work, do the research. It's out there, it's easy. And I'm sure that there are so many of us out there who are also, just ask, right? There was I think this was in Hive, or maybe it was a Discord chat where someone just asked the question. I don't know where to ask this. And I don't know if I'm asking the right question or saying it the right way, but can someone help me with this? And I thought that was a great start. There was no judgment there. They were asking the questions. They were letting you know they may get it wrong, and looking for that help to point them in the right direction. So don't be afraid to do the work and ask the question and have the conversations. Lastly, and lastly, I'll just add that, I personally have always collected dream catchers, right? Since I was a kid, and I had some challenging, dreams when I was little. And at one point I thought about bringing them, to my camp this year. But I wasn't sure. So what did I do? I asked Bob. I, reached out to Bob one day and I said, hey, this is something that works for me. Can you tell me more, give me more on if this is the right thing to do, right? Am I appropriating in any way by bringing something that was very specific or that meant something to me here on, to a larger platform? And it was really helpful. And I still thank you still, Bob, for that. And it was great. And thank you for the book, by the way, which I still have with me.
Thanks, Queen Badass. Yeah, just a reminder for folks on Hive, if you haven't been there, there are several courses. There's an implicit bias course. There's something about impact and versus intent, how things land versus how you necessarily intend them, and thinking about others. There's also a course about burner fragility and like how it might be difficult to start these conversations about diversity, and some tips and tools there. So thank you for mentioning that, Queen Badass. That definitely want to put a plug for going to Hive. And there's plenty of other online resources. You may get it in your own workplace. You may get it in your other fields. So Burning Man doesn't necessarily have the tried and true everything about it, but we have some places to start. I do see some hands that have raised amongst the audience, so I will go to that in a bit. But first, if you have a question or a specific comment to make, I would just say try to put it in chat first, and then we can hopefully cover it when we get there. But Drama Queen, go ahead and go.
I'll be very brief. I just wanted to say, if anyone is looking for information, the Hive, fabulous. I learned so much, but we have listed some from Mobility Camp in the chat. Not just where our camp is, but American Disabilities Act. There's a link to information on how to be an ally. There's a link to the Harvard implicit bias test, and 2 neurodiversity links to learn how to be sensitive to people with neurodiverse issues. One thing we've done in our camp, which was there long before I came, because people in our camp, some of them, you can't look at a person always and tell if they're disabled. they might be neurodiverse and they look and sound and walk and talk with absolutely no stutter, no stumble, but they have a balance issue, or they have an issue where they can't tell where they're going, a spatial issue. So we put flags around our camp. So when they're in camp, they can see the boundaries of the camp. When they're outside camp, they can find their way home. So things are up on in the chat for you.
Thank you so much. That is a really long list of great resources. We said that we'd have some tips and things to share that you can take home. So hopefully you're copying that down. We will also try to share that afterwards to everyone that has attended today's symposium. I want to shift gears a little bit because I think everyone in the audience here is here because they want to learn and because they want to figure this out. But I also want to, what would you say to people that aren't trying to do this, that still go to Burning Man, that think, hey, yeah, radical inclusion, anyone can walk in the door, anyone can come to my camp and do whatever they want, do the thing we're putting on. So who don't feel like they need to do anything extra because they're already very welcoming and they're already very supportive. Do you have any thoughts about that, about what to do with them, how to talk to them, etc.? I see some head nods. Drama Queen, why don't you take that since your head was nodded?
Okay. Yeah. What was in place long before I came to Mobility Camp is a code of conduct in our mission statement. It's online at mobilitycamp.org. That code of conduct on how to treat people, and if that doesn't happen, and also about health and safety. So it's like, if everybody's free and welcome in your camp, that's fantastic. But you also have to have some. It's why we have traffic lights. Everybody wants to be a good driver. Nobody wants to get in a wreck. But if we didn't have those traffic lights, there'd be a lot more wrecks than there are. So think about what those boundaries are for your camp and what's important. And that'll just make everybody so much more comfortable. And that's one way to start. And as I said, our code of conduct is a very nice roadmap. Write your own. Every camp has a different focus and wants to welcome people in their own way. But there are things you can and can't do to keep people safe and comfortable. So that's my 2 cents right there.
Thank you, Drama Queen. Big Daddy.
And like you said, is everybody that comes in, why should I do this? Why should I be diverse? And there was an incident in the multicultural neighborhood where a group was walking down and said, oh, we're in the ghetto now. And there's been lots of rumors about that, about saying that, oh, that the multicultural, that's the ghetto. And my daughter heard this, and I went out and I started talking. I go, why do you believe that? And it made them think a little bit. I don't know if I've changed or helped them or anything, but it was, somebody called them out on it. And so I think that's a start.
Yeah. And I often think about, there are all sorts of businesses out in the world, retail businesses that are like, we're open. And some look really scary and some look like really colorful and some just have different things. I think it's important to think about what signifiers are and how are people being told that they're welcome? How are people noticing that they're welcome? And people speak and react to different things in different ways. And so, some people really rely on hawkers in front of their camps to say, come on in and get a hot dog or whatever it is. How are you doing that in a way that really is embracing people to say, I see you and I want you in here, versus, hey, we're all huddled up together by the bar and you just find your way in. That can be challenging. I think people don't think about those little subtle messages that are being told, even if you're not being proactive.
Absolutely. If you, one of the things that I've shared with a few folks, we had at our camp, we had an event one day. We had a 90s party, and and it was really fun. And we were a POC camp, so obviously, especially in the beginning, a lot of the faces were brown faces that were there for to kick off our party. And it was interesting. So some folks were, walk down the street and just join in. But I noticed that there was a white person walked by, kind of walked towards the party, right? And then stopped once they saw all the brown faces and turned and walked away. And didn't join, right? Which was, I thought was very unburner-like, but I didn't do anything the first time, right? I just, noticed it and then let it go. And then it happened again. And the second time that it happened, I actually stepped out of camp, went over and, said, hey, come on in, like, you're welcome. The water's fine. We're okay. We don't bite. And then they came in, they joined the party and they had a great time. So I'm not letting folks know that those of us who should have added burden of helping that, but there is a moment where you can take that second and say, hey, it's okay, right? Just acknowledging and letting them know that that it was okay, change that, perspective. I definitely think in the future, I would have additional conversation, right? Come on in, and then it's, hey, what made you turn away, right? What was the thing, to understand it more? But there's still things that we can do to make everyone feel inclusive, right? So that was a moment where I could step outside of what I was experiencing, right? Who's often felt excluded, but say, hey, how can I make someone else feel included in this moment?
Wow. Thank you for that. I think it's so interesting because it's sort of like the power shifts a little bit. You're like, okay, now I'm the in group and there's someone on the outside, like peeking in and maybe not feeling comfortable. And when we've had these talks in other spaces, I think people really love to think about Black Rock City as this like amazing place where everything's different and we all love each other. And as much as that is an ideal and, we want to go towards that vision, we also carry our real world human behavior or how we've been trained to behave and our real world, reactions to when we see a certain thing. And it does take time to say, how do we show up differently? If I see a group of people that are wearing something that like I don't wear and like they're all huddled up together, like how do I approach that? And I think it's sort of a two-way street to think about, how is the in-group being more inclusive and how is the out-group also taking those risks? See hands up for my panelists, so David and Drama Queen.
I saw it briefly mentioned in the chat too, but I think a lot of people, like when I first went to Burning Man and I came out of Burning Man and I was trying to describe it to my Latino and Black friends to try and get them to come, the reputation of Burning Man was still like, drugs, alcohol, sex, like a lot of them had no intention whatsoever on going. And because some of our communities like actually have communities, the community aspect of Burning Man was not alluring at all because whatever. So there's been like I mean, we've done it in our camps and I've seen it done in other camps too, where there's been more offerings for water and ice on the bar and not just alcoholic beverages, trying to bring food from our countries like taco night or arepas. Usually brings a lot of people because when I see like arepas on the map or on the menu or something like that, I want to go check that out. And I think playing music that's not techno, like sometimes you just play salsa on the bar and then like 10 Latinos show up out of nowhere and they're like, oh my god, it's like so I think that there's a lot of other things that you can do on the layout of your camp, on the way that you communicate your camp, in the type of people that you recruit to like run events at your camp, the people that you give the opportunity to run the kitchen, all of these things that they're very, very, they don't need to be like super big changes, but any small changes like that will create an atmosphere that is more welcoming. That's why also like, for example, like international camps put a lot of their flags from their countries outside, because you're walking by a camp and you see like a flag from Colombia, you at least stop, you'll be curious. So all of these signifiers in your camp design and the way that you communicate your camp can make people of color and people with disabilities and stuff like that feel extremely super more welcome in your camp.
Thanks, David. Drama Queen.
I was going to, I'm sorry.
Sorry, let me hop in there 1 second. We've just got Andrea who's joining us now. So I wanted to let you know she's coming in.
Thank you. Great. We'll take Drama Queen and then I'll let Andrea introduce herself.
Right. I think Mobility Camp's been around for over 20 years, and we loan out, wheelchairs and medical equipment that people need, crutches and things like that. So we've been, and the front desk, you can sign up for our art tours or for the R.I.D.E tours, water, shade. So it's already an open, welcoming camp, and we're in center camp. That was in place long before I arrived. But what happened this past year was the reservation reached out to R.I.D.E, and one of the elders came to our camp because he was having difficulty wanting to use a wheelchair, and he'd had a leg amputation. And goodness, that was a wonderful experience. He came, there was a good interaction. That's where I met Cherub. Cherub is going to be leading our workshop in Native American awareness in April. We further had a family, a Native American family came in and, can we park here? Because we were like at 1A, right before you get to the Esplanade. Of course they could park there. Can you give us a license? No. Mobility Camp doesn't give licenses. The Department of Mutant Vehicles does. But I walked them over and they got all the intel that they needed, information in order to get a license. A Native young man walked up one day, no food, no water. He was not prepared. We took care of him. He walked away fine, and he got a ride where he needed. In 2018, the org made a huge mistake. That's all I'm going to say. And an African-American woman who'd just come off chemo came into camp with nothing because of the way the org treated her. We took care of her. That's all I'm going to say. Mistakes happen all over, but it's just this being open. And when you see an issue, it's responding to it with openness and generosity and what you can give. You can't give everything, but you can give a lot. So it's open-heartedness and taking care of each other. That's what's so important.
Thanks, Drama Queen. We have an additional panelist that we've come together to share her thoughts. I'll let Andrea introduce herself. And Andrea, the question that has been posed is, what do you say to camps that are like, I'm already welcome, I don't need to do extra work here, people can just come on in and like we'll treat them fine. Where do you, what's the response to that? What's the approach to that? So if you want to introduce yourself and if you ever thought about that.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I'm late. Took a friend to a hospital. They're doing well.
All good. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, they are okay. San Francisco's great support. My name's Andrea. I'm a theme camp organizer for Prototopia. We're a theme camp that centers around bringing intentional communities or cooperatives from San Francisco out onto Playa. Last year we were at Center Camp, and we care a lot about DEI. We've included it a lot in the structural kind of like makeup of our camp, down from sliding scale income-based dues to having positions within our camp like emotional ecologists to support certain ways of functioning. Outside of Burning Man, I've started diversity, equity, and inclusion coalitions before and for kind of corporate environments, and help lead some employee resource groups. I'm a product manager, so I'm definitely one of those likes to think of systems and how can we kind of interweave DEI into the system level kind of chemistry of our solutions. In terms of the question of what would I say if someone told me that they're already welcoming, the way that I think Burning Man will be inclusive of everyone isn't necessarily that every camp is great for everyone. It's that there's at least some camps that can fit everyone's needs, and it's that as an entire ecosystem we work for everyone. And that's how we really think about DEI in the intentional communities. People often say, are you well equipped to take in a housemate who suffers with addiction? And we're not. We are well equipped for other things, and it's okay that we're not. It's okay to to have some camps that have certain limitations. I think the question that I often ask myself in a community and as Black Rock City as a community is there a place for everyone somewhere? And is that place well resourced? And does everyone have at least a community or a place that's sufficient for them? And so with that in mind, it seems impossible to me that every camp would be accessible to everyone, but has everyone, kind of met some line of accessibility for all communities? And then beyond that, have some of us gone out of our way, or are there certain people that really still don't have a home or a sufficient home at Black Rock City, and have we done something there? So in terms of, have people been welcoming enough? I think I would just reframe into, I think there's always more work to be done, either in changing the structures or in changing the leadership, or if you feel that your camp is really welcoming once you're on Playa, do people feel welcome to apply to your camp before Playa? This is like a year-round thing. There's always more to be done, which is part of the excitement.
Thank you. Yeah, really, really thoughtful, and helping to, I think we covered that a little bit earlier too, just that this is an ongoing process, and learning and making mistakes is okay. So I'm hearing that echoed by you too. Big Daddy.
I see a statement in the chat, and this rings very much home about the first question for BIPOC people is, will I be safe? And I've heard that question so many times when I'm trying to recruit new burners, new campers, and they're worried about their safety. And I think that's one of the first areas where we need to, as a burner community, need to, outside of the big burn, is, yeah, you're welcome here, because they don't know right now. So
that's a great question. How, there's always new burners showing up. There's new people curious about going to Burning Man. How would you advise camps that are trying to figure out how to either take them into their camp as campmates, or show that it's a safe place when a lot of images out there may not reflect their own identity, or a lot of the videos and things like that don't show that, and or they haven't heard stories about other, non-white cisgendered people that have gone to the burn. So I'm curious if you have thoughts about that. It looks like Queen Badass might be trying to unmute. Or maybe not.
Why not just ask, what do you need? As
Go
a
keep
start.
going. Yeah. What do you mean?
I do know the one camper I mentioned to you who was African American. She was discriminated against in ticketing because she was African American. And so when she came to our camp, we gave her everything she needed. And it was dealt with. This was some years back. But what do you need? We made her feel safe just by a tent, some food, a cooler. Are we perfect? No. We had a situation where someone left our camp this year because they did not feel safe, because homophobic and racist remarks were made in her presence. I didn't see them. I didn't hear them. I was R.I.D.E lead. I had no idea what to do. And that's when we developed our kitchen talk. And that's where I've been learning. I've just suggested previously things to say and things that can be said. So that's a way to move forward, figure out a way to start the dialogue. If someone says something, what I'll do now is gather my people together with me. I'm not going to do it alone, because what happens is you can be triggered. If something's happened and it's a word or a phrase that shouldn't have been said, if you get triggered, somebody else in your group, your partner, can assist, and you can say, I heard that this was said. We need to talk about it. That's the opening. You've got to have those conversations, and I'm willing to do it. I think that's for our camp. We realized we had fallen short. Again, it was an opportunity to learn and grow.
Thanks, Drama Queen. Andrea.
Yeah, I would really caution against striving for safety and safety in general being centered as an experience. I think we've seen this a lot in the media around, in particular, cops and certain people not feeling or having not learned to feel safe around Black bodies. And actually, if you read, My Grandmother's Hands or a lot of book on internalized trauma within the white community, it's that a lot of people are a lot of the harm that we're seeing to people of color is actually coming from folks feeling a sense of non-safety. So I think people can feel unsafe and act pretty poorly as a result. And we have to remember that safety is a feeling. And so I actually never promise people that they're going to feel safe at Burning Man or anywhere. Because if you have trauma, and our camp has some folks that have PTSD, or we have an intentional community that has a lot of formerly incarcerated people, you can have triggers that are quite specific to childhood abuse or to anything, and I just can't guarantee anyone's safety. What I can guarantee is that if they are unsafe, that I'll do my best to be a safe person for them, and that I'll show up for them, and that I'll listen to them, and that I'll sit with them. And if they're feeling unsafe, that they'll at least not be alone, and that there'll be someone who can sit with them. And I've found that for folks who have PTSD or who've gone through a lot, even on the drive to Burning Man, undocumented folks who leave San Francisco, leave sanctuary cities. You no longer have, if you get stopped, you will get turned over to ICE. Some folks are moving through a world where it is unsafe, and we just don't have the political power to guarantee people safety. We can guarantee people as allyship, and we can ask them what would make them feel more safe, or what would make them feel accompanied through an experience that's going to be hard. And I think we also have a responsibility as POC people, as queer people, to think, how do we become more resilient? What does it mean for us to have spaces to process our trauma? What does it mean for us to create a sense of internal safety, to have meditation and practices that allow us to be settled in a world where we often are not given that, and are not primed to feel safe. And anyways, all to say, I think it's also okay for us to be not always able to guarantee safety, and to give ourselves space to just show up for each other, and to at least have feelings of solidarity.
Yeah, and that maybe safety isn't the ultimate answer to all of it, but I think marginal or increased safety, even just by seeing people and hearing people, is something to strive towards. David, and then I think just given we have about 25 minutes left, I'd love to open it up a little bit more so that people can either ask questions or share their own experience. Because I think that while we have a panel of really intelligent, experienced people, I think that there's experience also in the room. So want to be able to give some space for that. So David, and then take it from there.
Yeah, I wanted to say a little bit on safety because I happen to be I'm undocumented, and we have had many immigrant friends in camps that I've been a part of, and we do small things like putting certain supplies in the cars with the Americans because they can get you deported. And there's also with the Rangers, I said a little bit on the chat, and we've had situations where we had Black participants that were or people, sometimes they see a ranger coming to them and they're too drunk, or they had too much of something they didn't know what. When they see two rangers and they don't see two friends that are coming to take care of them, they see two people that are coming to kick them out of the event or something like that, because they might not have the acculturation. So we also have we have lots of people that volunteer on emotional safety at the event, and they are very, very well qualified and highly trained for many of these difficult conversations. If there are campers in your camp that are being racist or homophobic or something, you do not have to be the person that handles these conversations. We have rangers, we have sanctuary, we have sendo. and thousands of volunteers camping across several camps. There's probably a few of them on your camp that you're not aware of or in your neighborhood. So seek out the other emotional safety resources that we have. You don't have to come up with it. And we are aware of reactions to rangers and stuff like that. And there's other programs and other things that are happening. There's the Green Dot Rangers that are highly additionally trained in emotional safety and are going to have different color uniforms. There's all sorts of different initiatives to tackle these from other directions. And again, I think also telling stories and changing kind of the perspective of Burning Man into a community where there's all sorts of activities also helps people of color not feel that they're going to a drunk Miami weekend or something.
Yeah, thank you, David. I'm also noticing that there's some important conversations happening in chat, so I want to be able to point people to those in case you're seeing that. I know one of the more recent comments is from Chef Juke. In my experience, historically, the BIPOC folks who have been the most comfortable engaging with Burning Man were people who are already comfortable in all or mostly white spaces. There's also a recognition that BIPOC people may not feel completely liberated because there is trauma that needs to be worked on, sort of maybe hitting on Andrea's point earlier. I'm curious if anyone in the audience is interested in sharing kind of your own journey around R.I.D.E with your camp, and or with other spaces that you're in that are burn spaces. I think I need to do something in settings. Give me a second to be able to allow you to unmute yourself. I see Nima. I will give you a chance to unmute. Give me a second. All right, you can unmute now. No?
Oh, there you go. Yes, thank you so much. So first of all, a shout out to all of you, and also for doing this, and also shout out to Burners of Colors resource group on Hive that has been a tremendous help, especially during the last year where I was able to, with the help of Lion, I was able to bring so many of my brown friends to burn for the first time. And it was a beautiful experience, but also a very challenging one. So I had to have a lot of different difficult conversations with my friends, especially one who is a Palestinian friend. And when she showed up, she was like, oh, I don't know if this is the place for me. I was like, oh, this is especially the place for you. But she was like, look at all of these people with keffiyehs on their, as a scarf that they all bought it from Amazon. They have no idea where it comes from. They have no idea what the reality of it is. And when you look at the crowd, we all know, Israelis have really good psytrance DJs, right? And they have a large population that comes to the burn. And there's this major gap, we also know that Israel has been declared as an apartheid state by the UN, by the Amnesty International, by all the bodies that are actually looking at this. And then we look at the burn, and I see almost no Palestinians there. And when I look around and I try to mentalize myself, and I'm like, okay, if I was a Palestinian person looking at this situation, I would be terrified. Not because I have anything against all the all the Israeli friends that I party with, but this is if we are talking about it shows that at a larger scale, it seems like that we don't know what we are up against, and it seems like we are turning a blind eye on a lot of different things that are happening at the larger scale internationally everywhere around the world. And I want to know, from that moment, I made the mission for myself to kind of get a little bit more involved with the R.I.D.E efforts and see how can we as a collective make it bridge this gap in one way or another, and try to because on the other end of it, it's just it's very difficult for me to put the burden on the Middle Easterns, on the people who are already experiencing that trauma like generationally, to be able to just like during the week of burn, just spend all of that with every single interaction to just tell, oh, do you know like this is scarf that you've bought from Amazon? Do you know what the significance of it is? Do you know what are you wearing? Do you know like are you even interested in knowing any of that? So I'm kind of like I'm curious to know what all of you think about this, the panelists, the audience, and also like how can I be more involved to help not just for my friends but also a greater population that has no idea that burn is happening, or that they know that the burn is happening, but they look at it as a white experience, as something that as a white playground for the white folks to go out there and blow off some steam.
Thank you, Nima. That is a complex topic. I'm curious if anyone has a response. I will say at the very least, so my role in Burning Man is as the Associate Director of Placement, but I also sit on the R.I.D.E Stewardship Group. Chef Juke is in the call and is also on that. We are basically trying to build a lot out of not a lot. And so we're looking for people to help. So if you're interested in volunteering, in helping us build the spaces that we need for these kind of conversations, if we're looking for specifically, if you're really interested in making a Palestinian-Israeli space to be able to work together and think about this, like I think, one of the themes that I hope people took away is like, Burning Man allows people, we're a canvas that allows people to create. We're a canvas not just for art, but also for new ideas, not just for music guides. But if there's a space that's needed, we want to nurture and be able to support that. So I would say, Nima, there's an email called diversity@burningman.org. Feel free to email us there. Outside of that, I do think that, when I think of that question of like, what do we do, who's doing what kind of new, different world and way we approach conflict can emerge out of Black Rock City? I think we really believe in restorative justice. There's a reason the Black Rock Rangers exist, to try to shield us from real law enforcement, to say, our ethos as a community and our culture as a community is to listen to one another, understand difference, respect difference, try to learn from that difference. And so I don't really have a specific answer, but that, it sort of triggered me to think about, one, we can create more space. And, I think about the phrase, another world is possible. And, Burning Man and Black Rock City hopefully is that great grand experiment to say, we can have Israelis and Palestinians sit down and befriend each other and speak to one another and figure out what they can bring back home around this. We can have Ukrainians and Russians. We can have, name that conflict. We have burners of all sorts of types and from all around the world. And, if we can find the bridges and connections here, I think that can emanate in the world. So I don't know if any panelists wants to say something. I see David, sorry.
Just super sure, I guess, because I lived in Israel and I have many Palestinian friends in both sides, and most Israeli camps are anti-war, and most Palestinians that I know are, whatever. Like it's a thing that it is being talked about, and like lots of people are aware of, and it's not. And secondly, when people ask what is the org doing, I ask them, what are you doing? Because like everybody's complaining about everything all the time, and we barely have enough time to like take care of our departments. So yeah, I second level, like if you care about it, like, find some group that is doing something about it and support them. But not just that topic, any topic.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that to make it seem like, oh, let's keep ping-ponging and like it's your problem, not ours. Like I think the org is here.
Oh yeah, I mean, because like the first year that I went, sorry, like it was no Latinos. Like I ran into zero, and I was like, I need to do something about it. And then I started a meetup for Latinos in tech because they have a lot of disposable income, and then that allowed me to like bring some of my friends into the event, and I guess now these things are happening. So like there's a lot of things that are happening, and they're not like the org might not be aware yet of them. And there's people that might not be aware yet of them, but there's always people out there doing lots of super awesome things that is good to be like, it's good to be aware of the problems and then be like, okay, this should call me to find a group and help them and make it happen.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or experiences people want to share around your own ride journey? What your camp has tried, or where you made mistakes maybe, and you're like, oh my gosh, not that I want to air laundry that people don't want to air, but I think I see Mr. Kilt, you had your hand raised earlier too.
Sure. Yeah, at the beginning, thank you, Drama Queen, for mentioning pronouns and talking about, mistakes or can we do better. How many of us have our pronouns in Zoom right now? When we first logged in, it was about 1 out of 4. After I made my comment, it's not about half of us. So we've gotten better, but can we do better?
Yeah. And it's not to, say it's a requirement, but just in case you didn't know, actually in Zoom, there's now a feature where you can put in your pronouns even if it's not in your name. So
Right. Yeah, you can either change your name with the pronoun, or you can edit. That's true.
yeah, the robots are even doing
Yeah.
better.
Adding it on a Mac is weird. They made it hard. It's still possible, but it's a lot harder on a Mac.
Thanks, Mr. Kill. I don't want to put, no, I do want to put Chef Juke on the spot just because I think you've been quite active in chat. And I also want to give some space for Scout. I know Scout's been quite active in chat as well. Do either of you have anything you'd like to say just with your voice rather than typing?
Oh, you hear my voice so often.
I do. I don't know if everyone else does.
So I'm Chef Juke. I both work for Burning Man year round in the tech department and have been volunteering for the Department of Mutant Vehicles since 2002, so 21 years, and have been attending since 1994. So I'm one of those crusty old burners that people talk about. And when I first came to the playa, I think I was the only person of color that I saw my first year, and have been, this is when it comes to people of color at Burning Man, it's been a conversation that has been part and parcel of my experience since the moment I got there. And it is, these are not just like they aren't in the world. These are not easy issues to figure out perfect solutions to. Everybody comes at Burning Man with a different perspective. Everybody has a different level of comfort, but we've definitely, I think, as an organization and as a community made up of a lot of other communities, come to, for the most part, recognize that there are faces and voices and people who haven't been showing up at the party. And my take has been, it's my personal take, not an official take, was that coming into this discussion, some of the founders used to think, hey, we open the gates, people can choose to come in or not. And if they don't choose to, it's not because, hey, we're inviting everybody. We say it's in our principles. We invite everybody, but not recognizing that gate is not as inviting to some people that we might really want to have here. And navigating this is challenging. A lot of people look to the organization for, again, perfect solutions. And I can tell you, after 4 years of doing this ride work with the organization, as passionate as the people engaged are, there are no easily perfect buttons we can push and say, if we just do this, that'll fix it. And some people go, you just need to do that. And so a lot of it is this work, is having conversations, bringing more than just our perspectives to it, but everybody's perspective, and just start figuring out, honestly, it may not be big solutions, but a lot of little ones that help this, help us be a more inclusive, temporary society that we create. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Chef Juke. You just reminded me a little bit about, we had a little prep call a few days ago with the panel, and I think a lot of times people think about, I think Andrea might be saying this after me, but a lot of times people are thinking it's just a learning journey. Let's just do more trainings and then we'll solve the problem. But people are still figuring this out. It's not all figured out yet, and there are kind of practices that outside of just trainings and taking new workshops that really matter, including, let's make sure we get more diversity in leadership. Like, how are we supporting those folks coming up and being in positions of leadership? I'll let Andrea speak, and then Scout has graciously also said that she's willing to share some words. So Andrea, and then Scout, and then Drama Queen.
Yeah. Back when I thought I would be on time, I had written down the three things that have really helped me both in doing activism, community organizing, and R.I.D.E at Burning Man. And what I wrote down that I think is relevant is, one, I've committed to only doing DEI work when I'm coming at it from a place of love. If I'm coming at it from a place of anger or frustration, that means that I need to go take care of myself and I need to take a break. And I trust that there's other people who will keep doing the DEI work while I need to take a break until I can come back and do it from a place of love. And I think that's really important for both taking care of ourselves and for having a positive image for the community of what this work looks like. The second one that I wrote down is I think we need to focus on building for our communities, and that gets into making sure that our movements are led by and for our communities and not necessarily just from a place of allyship or performativeness. That also means that we should focus on building a space that does work for us instead of always focusing on eliminating the other or ending this problematic thing or stopping this. We spend so much time saying what is not liberating today instead of defining what liberation would feel like. Who's having these conversations on like, what does it feel like in our bodies if we go to Burning Man and we feel liberated? What would it feel like to be included at Burning Man? What, like, I would step out of my tent and what would I see or what would I hear? I would hear someone speaking in Spanish, maybe. I would see like a pride flag. I think we need to think about the affirmative and focus on building that and put a little bit less energy on the like taking down of what is there. So I think when we build something else, people will want to join us because it's going to be a beautiful new world, and we'll be ready to receive people. And the third one I wrote is just, I want a world where diversity is the default decision. And I think a lot about how right now in consumerism and capitalism, we're in a world where we have to go to such great lengths to not be harmful. And for me, the ideal world is one where I have to go to such great lengths to be harmful. I want the default to be that I'm a good community member and that I'm supportive of others. I want the default. I want to not even have to think about the decisions that I'm making. And I think that for me is why I focus so much on systemic change, is that humans are fallible. Those of us who hold intersectional identities are tired. And so how do we fix the system as a whole so that we don't even have to have these decisions, but we are at a place where the whole thing has kind of been rethought out and it's the default. And I think that to me is why we need to really think at the root of things, because it's tiring. It's tiring work. So yeah, those are just my 3 high level thoughts.
Yeah,
if helpful to anyone else.
Thank you. You actually said something I was going to try to wrap us with, but I can still say it. But let's take Scout and then Drama Queen, and then I'll do one final question for our panel.
Well, thank you, Level. I appreciate the opportunity to share some words. And I'm going to, pull a lot from what Andrea just said, because this was my 4th burn. I'll be coming back a 5th time. And my first 2 burns, I was in white dominant camps. And I say dominant and not majority because there was an imbalance of power in that space. My colleague and I, also a Black woman, we didn't really have a say in what went on in that space. And when we tried to take part in that camp experience, we were othered almost immediately. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Nice that you're here, but we're now going to do this thing. So I do want to make that clear that just because you open the door doesn't mean that there's a place, for that person to sit and actually be able to partake in the experience that you're building. And then the second point was that because we had our multicultural POC neighborhood this past year, I conducted a research project. I'm a journalism researcher in my default life. And one of the dominant points that just kept coming back was that there was this inability to feel liberated as a person of color in a space where you're taking generational trauma, you're taking lived experience trauma with you. So I do value the opportunity for us to learn what can this radically inclusive space look like when we do actually take it back home, because we are pushing back against power structures. We are taking the opportunity to question, well, why is there power imbalance in media, in tech, and how we learn about each other through science, through social media? Like, what can it actually look like when we do have diversity matched up with equity? Because that's actually how we have power balance and push back against the structures that are here now. So I do want to express, like, that is what I see as the power behind the multicultural neighborhood and why the R.I.D.E initiative needs to continue and expand.
Thank you, Scout. Thank you for sharing that. I'm the head of placement, so I want to know these names of camps. Anyway, but let's not detract from there. Drama Queen, and then I'll wrap it up with
Yes, thank you. I'm going to refocus just a little bit on disabilities and neurodiversity. It is so important that Burning Man be disabled accessible. And this past year, 2022, was the first time that the man was wheelchair accessible, and the first time that the temple was not. So I would like to see that accessible with railings even for the wheelchairs, so because the ramps were so narrow. So that is part of Mobility Camp's focus in physically helping in that way and making that aware, making people aware of that, and your camps and your art pieces. If you can't get the disabled into the top of your art, what about something at the bottom where, figure out a secondary way that people in a wheelchair or on crutches might be able to enjoy it. Also, neurodiverse people, don't take their reactions personally. They may need space. They may not be able to stand a certain smell or a certain sound. And their reaction of saying no may be no to that, but not no to everything. So there's a whole lot still to be learned, but I think that that's very important, because for neurodiverse people, Burning Man is really tricky. And also for disabled, not impossible, approach it with a smile and with, as I said, look at it as an opportunity to learn.
Thank you, Drama Queen. Yeah, I think we didn't tease it out a lot, but diversity means, and inclusion means everything, everywhere, everyone. And we were talking in our prep meeting even just about like the diversity of like dietary needs. There might be, there's always work to be done, and the easy way out is to not do the work. And the real work that does take heavy lifting is joining this conversation. So I really do thank everyone for coming today. I want to leave just a final question for our panel, and to try to keep it short, we only have a couple more minutes. But what do you think the end state here is for us? It's almost, Andrea mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what's the vision that that you feel like we're trying to get to with R.I.D.E? And that you love to see in Black Rock City? I know that might be a big question, so don't feel like you have to answer it, but yeah, like what would be a vision stepping out of your camp or your tent to see as like a truly diverse and inclusive Black Rock City? David, great.
I honestly, no, I feel a lot like that last year, because after I did build with a big camp, and then I moved to open camping where I could be more quiet. And on the 330 area, there's a lot of like older burners, more like kind of like queer camps, a few Latino camps. It's like it's more quiet. Yeah, so I for like 3 or 4 days, I didn't leave that area, and it was so nice. There was a couple of times that I went past like 5, 2 or 6, and then I immediately regretted it. And I think if more, but not to say that other areas like, but to say that there are places at Burning Man that already feel like this, like seeing like the first time that they did like the Black people of color picture, there was maybe like 30 people or something. I don't know. It was not that big. Last year it was wild. Like there's a lot of change that's already happening, and And the other thing that makes me very encouraged is that, as Andrea put in the chat very quick, like a lot of this reflects back into real life. Like we know lots of people, well, or we know of people that like went back to they say their default war and started got higher roles in their companies, got motivated to run for office, got motivated to start their own business. Like this has very real ramifications on the default world. So I think that what we're doing is very seriously. Like it's not just to have more people of color in a fancy party on the desert. Like this has real default war ramifications that it gets me super excited.
Thank you, David. I also noticed some folks responding in chat. So if you feel like you want to express what you feel like the end state is or that vision is, I'd love to hear it. We'll take Drama Queen and then Big Daddy, and then I think we'll wrap up.
I would like to see when I step outside of Mobility Camp that it's disabled accessible everywhere I go for everybody, and that everybody, wouldn't it be nice if we all had some kind of, I'll just call it sensitivity training to learn how to be kind and speak in ways. It's not a burden to educate. It can be really, really difficult for some people who are always on edge because they feel they might be discriminated against. I get that. But for the rest of us to be able to educate and speak up, think of the relief it gives to everybody else around you when you can carry that with you and speak up with kindness, but directness, and point out something that needs to be addressed in that kind way, but truthful way. It's a relief.
Thank you, Drama Queen. And Big Daddy, you can close us out.
I think for us with having an Indigenous camp, we had so many Indigenous visitors come and say, we needed you. And it's been nice. And like what Drama Queen was talking about, where it's a big influx of everything is changing. And I can tell you from when I first started to now, I think we're going in the right direction, but even people are starting to realize that the Black Rock City is on very sacred land, and we're starting to realize that. And I think we're moving in that direction. Are we there yet? No. Is there more work? Yeah, but I think we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, what a powerful way to feel welcome, included. Say, I'm so glad you're here. Queen Badass, you get to close us out.
Ooh, I'd like to see a time where the demographics of Black Rock City really reflect the rest of the country and the rest of the world. And a time where it doesn't have to be pointed out as like an extra initiative or an effort or anything, or anything else. And we're all thinking about that, right? It's not a call out. We're not doing something extra. It just looks like the rest of the world does.
I love that. It's just like breathing air. You don't think about it. You just do it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Big Daddy, Drama Queen, David, Queen Badass, Andrea. Thank you everyone else for showing up today for this conversation. Thank you, Chef Juke and Scout and Nima for letting me put you up on stage. There's one more breakout session that starts in about 2:30. So through the Pacific time. I hope this has been a fruitful conversation for you all. Again, gonna plug Hive. There's information there. Also gonna plug diversity@burningman.org. The org can facilitate things. We don't have the answers to everything. You are the org if you want to be and help out too. So thank you all. And I think there are some folks wondering about the multicultural POC neighborhood. Queen Badass, I don't know if you shared some contact information.
So Scout put a link inside of the chart for the Discord. Meetings for the multicultural POC neighborhood happen every week on Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Pacific time. If you join that Discord, you'll find out more information. Bob is also an active member of the neighborhood, so you can reach out to Bob directly. You can reach out to me directly. I'll put my email address in the chat. And that Discord, we just put it up again. Join that and communicate with anyone there. This coming Tuesday, We will have a lot of the camps who are going to be participating in the neighborhood this year, or camps who are interested, are going to be talking about what their plan is for their camp. So if you have any interest in either joining a camp or you're camping with the neighborhood, Tuesday would be a good opportunity to join, listen in, and see what's coming up this year.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap it.
Thank you.
See y'all
Bye
in
now.
the dust.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Level.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sandor. Mwah.